Young lady from California, the distinguished speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in praise of this legislation as the House prepares to pass the CHIPS and Science Act, a bipartisan, bicameral bill that will well equip our nation to meet and beat the challenges of the 21st century. With monumental investments in this legislation, we take key steps to strengthen our families and our nation's economic future, remove roadblocks to developing scientific talent, unleash research investment in every corner of America, now and for generations to come. Let us salute the outstanding leadership of the House negotiators who tirelessly fought and secured many major victories for American families and the American economy in this package. Thank you in particular to two terrific champions, Chairwoman Eddie Bernice Johnson of the Science, Space, and Technology Committee, Chairman Frank Pallone of the Energy and Commerce Committee, as well as other chairs who were involved in this legislation. And I want to also acknowledge the leadership of the ranking member, Mr. Lucas. Mr. Lucas, it was a joy and inspiring to behold your very informative and impressive presentation in favor of this legislation at the Rules Committee yesterday. The fact that a half a dozen of the bills contained in this legislation are Republican bills. I want to particularly join you in commending the staff on this and pay special tribute to Jan Wicker, who has been remarkable in building bipartisanship in this legislation. My understanding, she's recovering at home. I send her best wishes and prayers for a speedy recovery, but deep gratitude for her bipartisanship in putting this legislation together, which you so eloquently supported in the Rules Committee yesterday. For generations, Americans has offered a beacon of excellence in science, innovation, and engineering. Our research has generated ground-changing discoveries. Our industry has powered unprecedented prosperity. Our technology has altered the course of history, and our workforce has been the envy of the world. I'm so happy that in this legislation, there are up to 100,000 Davis-Bacon jobs that will be created. But in recent years, many other nations have followed our blueprint, investing in R&D and manufacturing and education. Their rise not only threatens America's status as the world leader in innovation, but also the economic security of America's families. That is why, with the landmark legislation that we will pass today, we will put America back on the path to preeminence so that we can compete and win in the 21st century. When I mentioned those 100,000 Davis-Bacon jobs, that means the prevailing wage for our workers. I want to salute Chairman Bobby Scott for his work on that regard. Our CHIPS and Science Act, as it's called, and I'm so happy because a week ago, Mr. Lucas, I thought it was just going to be the CHIPS Act. But fortunately, with your help and the negotiations of our distinguished chair, Eddie Bernice Johnson, we're able to get it be the CHIPS and Science Act. The CHIPS are for now. That's important. Make it in America. Keep us preeminent. The science is about our ongoing preeminence, and we'll talk some more about that. Again, because of the persistent patriotic negotiations, and the Congress can take great pride in this result. I want to say about Eddie Bernice, our chair, Eddie Bernice Johnson. She has been a respected leader as chair now of the Science, Space, and Technology Committee, respected in the science and research community for her ongoing commitment, her knowledge, her vision, her values about keeping America #1. Thank you, Eddie Bernice. The package includes more than $50 billion to bolster America's manufacturing of semiconductors, seizing the pivotal opportunity to restore our status as world leader in chips. Make it in America, as Mr. Hoyer would say. Doing so is an economic imperative, creating, again, nearly 100,000 good-paying union jobs and lowering costs for American consumers while producing a crucial component of nearly every major technology we enjoy, including the cars we drive, 1,000 in a car, 2,000 in an electric car. And is also a national security necessity. reducing our dangerous dependence on foreign manufacturing, especially amid growing aggression from the Chinese Communist Party. Crucially, the bill contains strong guardrails, ensuring these transformative investments go straight into the American economy, not into stock buybacks or dividends or into facilities overseas. Mr. Speaker, just as importantly, this legislation will reinvigorate American innovation nationwide with robust investments in research and technology. This bill takes a giant leap toward building a more diverse and inclusive STEM workforce so that our nation's brightest minds, wherever they are, in whatever communities, ethnically, geographically, generationally, are solving problems with science and driving American entrepreneurship. This bill delivers job-creating hubs in every corner across the country so that more communities can participate in research and development. And this bill empowers our nation to push the boundaries of science with investments that powers America's preeminence in both basic research and next-generation technologies. In doing so, American dominance in the industries of the future for decades to come. Mr. Speaker, let me be clear. This legislation is a resounding victory for the American people. Indeed, the final package contains a number of key provisions from our America Competes Act on the Democratic side, which were not included in the Senate bill. It was House Democrats who secured ironclad guardrails on the CHIPS investment so that the federal funding benefits American workers and interests, not our competitors overseas. It was House Democrats who delivered historic funding to transform our nation's research capacity, powering decades of discovery at the National Science Foundation, Department of Energy, and National Institutes of Standards. It was House Democrats who won smart, strategic investments in clean energy and industries of the future, supporting renewable energy, combating the climate crisis, and developing cutting-edge technologies. And it was House Democrats who fought to broaden participation in the innovation economy, building a STEM workforce that better reflects the beautiful diversity of our nation while bringing recompete grants, thank you, Mr. Kilmer, to persistently distressed communities across the nation. I thank our distinguished chairwoman, Eddie Bernice Johnson, for making so much of that possible. Thank you, Madam Chair. Throughout the process of crafting the CHIPS and Science Act, the Congress has approached this work in a proud bipartisan spirit, as was witnessed by Mr. Lucas's beautiful presentation to the Rules Committee yesterday. This legislation was assembled with input from negotiators from both sides of the aisle and both sides of the Capitol. It was a product of the committees. In the Senate, the bill earned 14 Republican senators' votes for final passage. And here in the House, our American Competes Act was rooted in bipartisan bills with broad support in the Congress and in the country. As I mentioned, 6 intact Republican bills are part of this legislation. It is a hope that this vital legislation will pass today. It will pass. It would be my hope that it would pass a broad bipartisan vote that America needs and America deserves. As we send the landmark legislation to President Biden's desk, we participate in a great American tradition. In one of his final speeches, President John Kennedy addressed the National Academy of Sciences, where he delivered a powerful case for science as our North Star. His words have stood the test of time. He said, "I believe that the power of science and the responsibility of science have offered mankind a new opportunity, not only for intellectual growth, but for moral discipline, not only for the acquisition of knowledge, but for strengthening of our nerve and our will." He knew then, and we know now, science serves as our nerve and our will to boldly seize the opportunities and tackle the challenges of our time. With this legislation, President Biden and the Democratic Congress, and I would hope in a bipartisan way, proudly charge ahead in this all-American spirit with science, 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 and science leading the way. People say to me, well, science or faith? I said, I believe that science is an answer to our prayers. With that, I urge a strong and bipartisan vote for the CHIPS and Science bill. I thank all who are involved in this, including Mr. Lucas and our distinguished chair and other chairs on both sides of the Capitol and members on both sides of the aisle. With that, I yield back the balance of my time and urge an aye vote. Thank you.